We must experience ourselves. We must live to our fullest capability. If we're orange, we must live orange. And stop thinking how to live red. Because if you constantly think how to live red, you'll never experience yourself, and therefore you'll never experience God. People come to problems when they don't see themselves. When they don't see themselves as God. When I say that Torah and Yisrael, when the Chazal tell us, the rabbis tell us that Torah, Israel, and God is one, it means very simple. The idea of one nation acting as one with all its bearing flags, holding them high, together experiences this harmonization. At the same time, Torah, wisdom, is the ultimate level of harmonization. Is all the definition of God. It's all one idea. It's all one concept. That is God. God is the experience of everything. But in order to achieve that, to get to that level where we're God willing, in the future, Olam Haba, the times of Mashiach, will experience this feeling, this redemption of everyone at every moment. To obtain that, we must fulfill our destiny. We must be green, because when that symphony comes to play, a note might be missing. So it's very important for all of us to live to our fullest, to be who we are. When we say the word we're free, it means we can now make choices to be us. Yesterday I was them, now I can be me. The problem in Judaism, and the problem that we all have in Judaism, is that, I don't know if anyone watched the famous movie called Fiddler on the Roof. You watched Fiddler on the Roof, famous movie, right? So what's the base of the movie? You have this father, old timer, back from Europe, wants his kids to marry someone Jewish. The daughters, one after the other, fall in love with a non-Jew. He begs them to marry a Jew, stop dating this fellow. And yet their struggle is, do I choose happiness over Judaism? Do I pick happiness over religion? And yet the father at every wedding sings tradition, tradition. The problem with that picture is that there's no difference between happiness and religion. When we think of religion, we think of a saint. When we think of a saint, we think of fasting and crying and ripping one's clothing and mourning. That's not true. When God gives us a book, He wants us to achieve happiness. And yes, there are problems in life, because problems bring to happiness. What is the greatest happiness that any one of us in this room could experience? What is the highest level you ever reached in your life? That's when you had children. When you're in that room and your wife gave birth, when you yourselves gave birth and you saw that baby for the first time, that was the greatest experience of life. When you married off your first child, that is greatest happiness. But at the same time, your children are the biggest pain. You can no longer go to the clubs at night. You must babysit. My wife can't experience my classes anymore. She has to be home. We might go to Mount Everest, and we want to climb this mountain. Yes, climbing that mountain, we'll break some bones and cut some scratches. But when we get to the top, we'll feel something. Where we can bail out and live on the bottom and put up a tent and say, I'm chilling. What is the ultimate goal in society? The ultimate goal is retirement, the Bahamas, put your feet up with a martini, and no bills. Quietness, bliss. What's the combination of all these things? The combination is no. Nothing. No achievement. No accomplishment. To escape everything. Our job is to be real. To experience us, our capability, and to live to that fullest. To experience green. I'll tell you a fascinating story. There was one man. His whole life, he wanted to go on a cruise. His whole life. He had a government job. Saved up money. Finally, after 25 years of saving up money, he was able to go on a cruise, a European cruise. Travel the world. He's on the cruise, he buys himself a beautiful suit. Ready. He goes on the deck. It's the first day. Puts his feet up high. Perfect breeze. He has a martini in his hand. And he's like, wow, this is awesome. And suddenly hears a scream. He just found a baby fell off of the board. Without thinking, he jumps over the board. He jumps into the water, realizing he can't even swim himself. But he grabs that child, holds that child for his dear life. And finally, you have rescuers that rescue him. He swallowed salt water. He ruined the suit that he paid $1,000 for. And the rest of the trip he spends in the hospital, whatever what's that? Infirmary area. So, now what would you say to this person? That person just gave up. No, and he saved something. He saved a life. And that person felt nothing better than ever he experienced in his life before. Real happiness comes with achievement, with hard work. And we always bail out. We always try to find excuses not to cut corners. We're afraid because all of us feel something low of ourselves. We don't see that we're God. We are an image of God. We could do it. We are free to choose. We must live it. The idea of free will only happens when we don't see things clear. If I tell someone to take his hand and put it into a fire, the person won't do it. He'll even resist because he sees the consequence lies before him. If I tell someone to jump off of the bridge, that person won't do it. I'll break my head. I always wanted to go skydiving. My wife found that. She said, no way. No way. She's not my boss. I'm not my own boss. I don't have free will anymore. So, there goes that one. You break your head. You'll resist. The concept of free will only exists at a place where we don't see things in clear. In this finite experience right now, we don't see the entire picture. We don't see the harmonization of everything. Remember, God created time and space. He's beyond time and space. When we say God is, was, is, and always will be, it's not because he sees in the future and he saw in the past and he sees right now. He's beyond, above everything. Every moment is happening now before him. What happened, what is happening, what will happen. You know, like the Wizard of Oz, the witch. She sees that crystal ball, sees Dorothy flying. She sees the entire picture. Exactly what's happening. It's not that God saw the future and therefore we will choose. No, God's seeing us choose already. We're living in a finite world, not experiencing the totality of the harmonization, and therefore we're limited, and therefore we're not experiencing what will be right now. But God is experiencing what will be right now. And therefore it doesn't contradict our our realization, our reality of free will. God has seen what we already chose. Not what we will choose. Because God is there. And God was and is. World War I, World War II, and the Exodus of Egypt, and Abraham taking Isaac to the mountain, and King Solomon building the temple. Everything is happening every moment and every second before God. There's no time. God sees the entire picture. He's above it. We live in the picture, and therefore we can't see everything. And therefore we have that ability of free will. God will see us do what we're doing at this moment there every time. It's a deep concept, something to think about. We'll get to the questions. I'm sure everyone will have questions with this idea. But I want to get to the next stage called practicality. The practical, we have time?
Yeah.
Anyone, if I talk too long, I tend to do so. If it gets boring, just tell me. Don't worry.
It won't get boring.
Okay. So, we have to get to a more practical sense of free will. This is more of a philosophical idea. Once we can establish that we live in a finite world, we do have the capability of doing things, and whatever God sees is what we're doing at that moment of every time, at that time. But the question is, once we establish we're doing, where do we have free will? Because we choose to do something doesn't mean we can do it. Can I make someone else do something for me because I just want to? In finances, because I want to strike gold, I just will. Can I do that? We know of all people that worked very hard, went to hard schooling, and yet are struggling for jobs today. And we know people that work very little, yet they struck gold. Funny story, it was a Canadian, I forgot who it was. It was a Canadian. I watched this interview. long ago, and it was a philanthropist, and he was interviewed. They wanted to ask him how, it's a business talk, they wanted to ask him, how do you obtain your wealth? So he said, when I was a child, I took an apple and I sold it for 1 cent. And I took that 1 cent, I invested in 2 apples. I took it and I sold it for 4 cents. Then I bought a basket, eventually filled the basket with apples. My grandfather died and I inherited $65 million. The finances were very limited. We were very limited to free will. What about health? We may choose to be healthy. My wife may want me to go Anytime Fitness, but does it come down to that we are healthy? Because we want to. We all know stories that we wish we didn't. We all experience stories in lives that we wish we never experienced. Because we sadly don't have that capability. So when do we have free will? When could we be who we are? When could we choose? And that's in the idea of character traits, building character. There's an idea called Nukudas HaBechira, the point of free will. What is the point of free will? In the old era, not in modern warfare, but in the old era of people battling, armies battling, countries battling with each other, you have to imagine 2 armies colliding. Behind the enemy lines, behind the other enemy's lines, there's very little resistance. And the deeper you go, there's no resistance at all. The battle is only at the front lines. Many of us grew up in religious homes. And by us making brachas and wake up in the morning to pray to Hashem is not really a challenge. That's not our free will. Our free will may be, are we paying attention to what we're davening? Are we thinking about the blessings we're about to make? That might be our free will. And people that are sadly, were not exposed at that life yet. Maybe God willing soon. And they grew up in a secular home. The idea of driving on Sabbath is not their free will. But when they ponder a question of truth and emes, and will they seek it, or will they avoid it? That may be their key point of free will. Free will is when truth meets falsehood. And every one of us are different. This is why in Judaism it's very bad to compare one child to the next. Because one child did something doesn't mean the other one will, because all of us have different points of free will. Every one of us experiences life in a different color. Our free will is determined where our war is at. Where is that truth versus false meeting? And yes, the bar will be raised. That's what it means when every time we do a commandment, that bar is raised. We become accustomed to that commandment. We experience that harmonization, and we go to the next level. And our bars, and then sadly, if we fail and we sin, our bar will be shortened. And that becomes not part of our free will. We have to now experience a lower level of free will. And our job is somehow to get that bar higher and higher. And every part of us is different. We all have different parts of this experience of Nukudas HaBechira. And that's exactly where Nukudas HaBechira lies. You know, Pesach is coming. Pesach, the experience of freedom, the experience of being us is something so important. When we're asked to experience the night of Pesach, we're going to sing now a Shir Chadash, Hallelujah. We're now going to sing you a new song of redemption. And the question you may ask is, what new song? We've been singing this for 3,000 years. What new song are we singing? And the idea is because the exodus of Egypt happens at every moment, at every time, when we experience our free will, when we experience our capability. We could be who we are. We could be something special. And somehow society robs that from us. It tells us to be distracted. Every nuance that we could live with, every beauty that we can experience, we fall short because we're afraid to do it. We're afraid. We're afraid of commitment. But we must commit. Not because it's painful. Because you can experience something beautiful. And what's the problem of committing? I don't know. I may not be able to do it. I can't. That already is a showing, is bailing out. Don't say that to yourself. It's better to commit and to break it than not to commit at all. Because at least you experience the fulfillment of commitment. You experience whatever that means. As Jews, you must experience freedom. As Jews, we must experience our colors. And that is the fundamental ideal of free will, and that's the true definition. I call it God for grown-ups. Definition of God. The experience of harmonization. My blessing to everyone here, myself, to my family, everyone's family, is that we should experience this Passover, this Pesach, a true symphony, a true Shir Chadash, a true song. The experience of harmonization. The experience of not no, but yes, we can do it. Thank you very much. If anyone has any questions, I would love to answer anyone.
I have a question for you.
Yes.